Hello, welcome to the Illinois Collections Preservation Network webinar today. My name is Bronwyn Eves and I am the project manager for the ICPN. I would like to start by saying thank you to the Illinois State Library for hosting this and all of our webinar series, and especially to Debbie Aggert here as our technical support today. I would also like to say that the ICPN programming is funded by a grant from IMLS, and we appreciate their support and thank them for that. Before we get into our preservation topic today, I would like to share with you a brief background of the ICPN in Illinois. In 2009, a group of preservation professionals from several libraries, museums, historical societies, and other related institutions in Illinois received an IMLS Connecting to Collections planning grant. During the course of this one-year grant, these partners led discussions across the state to identify the preservation needs of collecting institutions. A survey of over 300 institutions revealed that there's a great demand for preservation and training and support in Illinois. This survey information was used to write a statewide preservation plan, form the ICPN, and apply for an IMLS Connecting to Collections implementation grant. In 2011, Illinois was one of only 6 states to receive such a grant, and today's webinar is a result of that grant. You can find much more information on our website, including a list of grant partners and additional programming. We will post our website address on your screen shortly. Briefly, some of the other program highlights for the ICPN are a series of fire recovery workshops that we will be holding next spring. Stay tuned for more information on that. We don't have the dates set yet, but it will be in Champaign through the Okay.
Sorry, we didn't have audio there for a moment. It cut out. Go back maybe to where the webinar or where the website was.
Okay, I'm going to backtrack a little here. I'm not sure where I lost you. My mic was cutting out there for a minute. We have lots of ICPN programming coming up, not just the webinars that you're attending today, but we'll be hosting a fire recovery workshop in Champaign in the spring. We will announce the details of that as we have them. We also have some environmental monitoring equipment that is available to borrow. Please contact me if you'd like to borrow free of charge. We have data loggers, museum HEPA vacuums, and a few other materials. There's more information about that on our website. Thank you again for engaging with the ICPN today, and welcome to our webinar. I have the great pleasure to announce our presenter for today. Our presenter is Joshua Harris. He currently serves as the Media Preservation Coordinator for the University Libraries at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, where he is establishing a formalized program to address the preservation needs of media collections throughout both the library and campus at large through the Center for Multimedia Excellence. Josh received BA degrees in Anthropology, Archaeology, and History from Miami University at Ohio in 1998 and worked as a field and laboratory archaeologist for the Illinois State Museum and the University of Tennessee. In 2001, Josh joined the Smithsonian Institution for National Museum of Natural History in the Department of Invertebrate Zoology, working on large-scale specimen preservation. Josh moved to the National Geographic Society in 2004 and During this time, there coordinated a diverse range of activities, managing the staff and collections, film and audiovisual archives. Josh also spent 2 years at the University of Kentucky as lead designer of the library's electronic resource management system.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Good morning. I'm waiting for my okay. 1 second. Hold on. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Like Bronwyn said, I'd like to introduce myself, Josh Harris. I'm from the University of Illinois. And I'd like to, start off by thanking the Illinois State Library as well as the ICPN for hosting this webinar. And I'd like to, welcome you all to the world of audiovisual and media preservation. I'm going to be giving kind of a very general overview of a lot of different topics in this discipline today, and so I hope you find it interesting. We're going to cover a lot of stuff. Not going to get crazy technical on you, but definitely going to give you an idea of what audiovisual and media preservation means, and kind of what some of the challenges and what the future looks like for protecting our film, sound, and moving image heritage. So let's get started with a kind of an anecdote that I like to show. Some photos here. I'm going to show two slides worth of photos. One was taken in I took in a very dirty, damp, and disgusting basement in Pittsburgh. The other I took in a very dirty and damp and disgusting basement in Manila in the Philippines. And what both of these slides show are the state of a lot of our media heritage currently. Both these sets of pictures were taken within the past 2 years, and they are indicative of how media has been treated, and also some of the very difficult challenges that we face in trying to provide access to and preserve this stuff. Coincidentally, the one showing right now is Pittsburgh, and this one's in the Philippines, and it also goes to show that this is a worldwide problem. It's not just something that we see here in Illinois or see in America. It's seen all over the world, and it is the issues facing those collecting and trying to work with media are the same across the board. A quick quote from that kind of sets the stage here from the Library of Congress in a report they did a couple of years ago, states that some believe that the challenge of preserving sound and recorded collections is narrow and easily framed, simply a matter of copying old recordings to a new medium. The process, however, entails much more than transferring a recording or saving it as a digital file. Those are just 2 steps somewhere in the lengthy chain of events. It goes on to say that the preservation of recorded sound, and in video as well, video and film as well, entails a set of processing, required planning, and sophisticated technical infrastructure, and comprises several steps and requires important decisions that need to be made along the way. So what really is AV and media preservation? From the media perspective, some of the terms that you are all familiar with kind of have the same but a little bit of a different approach. We look at conservation as the safeguarding and protection of the original materials, and this can often involve hands-on intervention and repair of physical materials, similar to how it would be with paper, maps, or any other type of conservation techniques. Preservation would be all actions taken to maintain an object in its existing condition, minimizing the rate of change and slowing down further deterioration. That involves environmental planning, infrastructure, housing, and all these types of things. And preservation also can include the duplication, copying, and migration of materials so that you're protecting the content held on the media carriers. Then restoration is a big part of this as well, is when there are actions that are taken to an object, to the content, that modifies the existing material or structure in order to return it to its known earlier condition at a various point in time. So that would be taking images on a film and making them look as they did when they were first originally shown. So a group called the CCAAA, which is an audiovisual organization, put out a document that termed preservation as the totality of steps necessary to ensure the permanent accessibility forever of an audiovisual document with maximum integrity. That's kind of a tough statement. I mean, it's a big task there. And so in reality, the term AV preservation really encompasses everything that I just mentioned: preservation, conservation, and restoration where it's needed or desired. And that quote kind of makes looking at these types of piles of film that much more difficult. How do we make this picture, how do I take that and make that accessible to people or available to people forever? It's a daunting challenge. So what does the landscape look like right now in terms of media and audiovisuals? We're looking at wide ranges of collection types, which we'll talk about a little bit of all of these things today, a vast multitude of formats and carriers, wide range of asset conditions from pristine to severely degraded, like we saw in those photos, a wide range of storage conditions from excellent to extremely poor to not, as well as a very wide range of cataloging, metadata, documentation. Not a lot of collections, of course, none of this exists. Some have been categorized down to the clips within the film. And then, of course, preservation action and the migration to the digital world has occurred in bits and pieces across many collections, but these are still really new technologies and really getting into really starting to get into the issues of moving forward. And then standards and policies are in place, but these are changing constantly. So the landscape looks much like the landscape of Illinois. Endless, flat, and you can see forever. It seems like there's no end to these challenges, but there is, and we're working, and there's people working on this stuff. So we're working to move forward across this landscape. Some of the questions we'll try to look at today include, what do you have in your collections, and how do you know what you have? Where is it located, and what is its condition? How do you access it currently, as well as then how, of course, do you preserve it? So, what do you have? Coming across the screen right now is a sampling of what I would call the most popular film and video formats. These are just of course, a very general look at each one of these. Requires their own specific units to play them back, their own specific they all have their own specific preservation issues, and they all need to be preserved in a different way. In the audio world, you have a similar thing, maybe even more so. This is a spattering of the most general audio formats, and so it gives you kind of an indication of and these are found in collections all over the world. Some of these were used, very widespread in the industry, and some were used for a year or two. And so large portions of these audiovisual and media collections are in danger due to inadequate storage, the format and media degradation, meaning the actual lifespan of the tape or film itself and how it degrades given in certain environmental conditions. Huge, of course, here is playback and recording equipment obsolescence. It certainly doesn't matter if you have pristine D1 cassettes, but D1 players and recording equipment are very hard to find and are very difficult to use. And then, even on top of all that, of course, is the knowledge obsolescence. The guys that used to man the TV stations and man broadcast studios and that would work with old formats, knew them back and forth. These guys are now, if we're lucky, in their 70s and 80s, and they are very difficult to find. And so fixing equipment can be, and finding expertise in even how to use some of the equipment can be very difficult. And so trying to obtain as much knowledge as possible, then to be able to pass that on into the future is a goal right now. And so why should we be concerned about this? I think I've stated pretty obviously so far that we should be concerned given but if we look at the recorded history, and if we look at types of collections and types of materials that we all come across in the collections world, cave paintings have existed on the walls of French caves for tens of thousands of years, clay tablets, thousands of years. Books, we know that books are, if kept well, or will go for hundreds and hundreds of years, if not more. Film has been around for 100 years or so, and a lot of it is still in good shape if kept well. And then it just keeps getting smaller and smaller. Audio and videotape, years. VHS tapes are long going away. And digital stuff, as many of you probably know, digital formats that were used for digital cameras, digital video cameras, even 10 years ago are already obsolete. So that window is getting smaller and smaller. So I'm going to go through some of the formats that you might see coming across your collections, and very briefly, I'm not going to go into a whole lot of depth, but how we are currently ranking the risk factors of some of these formats, both in video and audio. What we consider right now to be in the very high risk category are two formats that you see here. One is called 2-inch, and that's the big open reel tape up on the right. And on the left is a 1/2-inch open reel tape. And the lovely lady there is shooting with these were the first portable video cameras. And they were used heavily in field work. So those of you have anthropological collections or have biological field work collections may see a lot of this open reel tape. Both of these types of tapes are very difficult to deal with. The players are really, really out of date and very hard to find. And especially those 1/2-inch open reel tapes were very poorly made. They were a consumer format, and they are very heavily prone to mold, and they degrade really, really quickly. So we put these in a very high-risk category. High risk, going down the line, is a couple formats you see here. One is called 1-inch. Those are the open reel tape there. I would suggest, if you have an open reel 1-inch machine, not to put it in your backyard like this picture has, but that's probably not so good for the machine. But anyhow, the 3/4 inch U-matic is a machine to the right, and actually I'll show you here. This would be what a 3/4 inch tape would look like, something like this. You're going to see they're a little bit bigger. They have a very, very specific hub configuration here. You may find a lot of these. They were really, really high use, very, very popular format, and but they're in a high-risk category because they degrade really quickly. They are under certain environmental conditions will become the tape becomes very sticky. And the machines themselves are very finicky. They're difficult to fix, and they are break down very easily. D1 and D3 are high-end broadcast formats that you may not see so much, but they are also very high risk. In the medium risk category are a lot of different formats that fall under the what you call Betacam. There's dozens of different Betacam formats, and all of these other smaller consumer and semi-professional formats that were called DVCam, DVC Pro, Mini DV, anything that is kind of a small cassette that would be used in a camcorder. These are all, while they are still around and they are in very, pretty good shape, they are, and there are lots and lots of machines, they still need to be just kept an eye on. Then our, good friend VHS, which we all, I think, are familiar with, unless you're very young and haven't seen these. And this is a picture of how it gives an example of how popular of a format VHS was. They are everywhere, and I think we all know that they are everywhere. The problem with VHS tapes is that they were very poor quality format. I think many of you, if you watch a movie recorded on VHS from the 80s, know that it looks pretty bad compared to what we see now. And you'll find that a lot of the tapes were poorly made. The tapes were not. None of this stuff was made for archiving. None of this stuff was made to last forever. The companies that made this material didn't say, "Oh, I want," just as we see technology completely moving at such a rapid pace, it's always on to the next thing. VHS was just one thing. The good news is that there are tons and tons of VHS players out there. People still know a lot about the format, but they're in high risk because we want to get stuff off of VHS because they degrade really, really quickly. If you happen to have audio wax cylinders or any type of cylinder recording, these are very high risk. They, if not kept in very good condition, in pristine environmental controls, they will break down really quickly. And on top of that, as you can see here, the players you don't exactly find wax cylinder players, at Best Buy. There are like one or two companies left that will make them, but they cost into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so these need to be transferred, if possible, by a professional audio studio. More commonly, what people will see in your collections would be open reel audio tapes. As you see up at the right, they were used very, very widely. There's tapes, quarter-inch audio tapes everywhere, and they are very prone to degradation if kept in bad storage conditions. Mold is a big factor. There are many different tape formulations, so they were made in many different types of ways, and playing them back, they can, if they were kept in too humid of an environment, can show what's called sticky shed, which means the tapes actually stick together, and in that case, you're dealing with some really, really big problems. I have a couple examples here of, I don't know if you can see through the webcam, but these are like extremely moldy tapes that are really bad condition, and these will need, oh, there we go, these will need very special handling, and they will need to be clean. It will take a long time to get the recording off of that tape, and it will require very intensive conservation and preservation work. Also, we have lacquer and aluminum and glass discs. Anything in the realm of recordings on any type of LP or going back further into the Edison discs and all these types of formats, they're very fragile. As you can see a picture here, that was one that literally, it was made out of the lacquer was coated on top of glass, which was used during the World Wars, during World War II, because it was cheap. And so you'll even find lacquer discs that were coated on top of cardboard or paper, very common. And these are very fragile. They also get very, the one, if you can tell on the very left, is white in color. Over time, a residue called palmitic acid is given off, and these require them to be cleaned. Actually, just, soap and water will clean it off just enough for you to transfer it, but that will come back. The palmitic acid will continue to formulate and come back. So these need to be both handled and taken care of, relatively high risk. Then, of course, we have audio tapes. Lots and lots of these around. We put them in medium risk because for the main, depending if you're in the 70s, you're looking at stuff that's going to be in pretty bad shape. They suffer from all of the same issues that open reel tape does. Some of them were really cheaply made, some were very high end. And if you get into the 80s and 90s, you'll find ones that were better quality, but the further back you go in time, the more likely they're going to be damaged. And as you can see at the bottom right, and I actually have one here, one of those same ones right here, a lot of this stuff has to, we're looking at handling of these materials is a big issue. How they can, just like the lacquer discs I showed, all it takes is just a little bit to break one, and then if they're broken, it's going to take hours and hours to get these tapes back into their cases. And so handling of the media is something that should be stressed, to make sure to take care and handle it as you would any other artifact. CDs and DVDs. This one is they're medium risk right now. A lot more research is needed. We know that the information on CDs and DVDs will last. It's just there's not as much data on whether or not the longevity of the actual physical format itself. Much like VHS, there's a consumer thing, and handling is a big issue. I think we all have piles of CDs laying around all over the place, or scratched up, and they are very difficult to once they're messed up, they're hard to retrieve that data back off of. So I think we're looking at a case where we're going to be taking a lot of the data off of CDs and DVDs soon. And then the digital domain. I'm just going to touch on this a little bit. We're not going to get crazy into the digital world, but again, it's medium to high risk depending on the file format and the carrier itself. The picture to the right is a pile of hard drives. Those hard drives are old. They've been kept in a horrible condition, as you can probably tell. The data on them is inaccessible unless there is a burgeoning field of what's called digital forensics, but you're getting into high-end, costly methods to retrieve this data that's on there, and there's no information of what's even on these hard drives. So again, we're looking at something that needs to be monitored. And then, of course, film. Film is my favorite, and it suffers from all of the above issues we've talked about, and then more. Film as a format, as a carrier, has a lot longer lifespan than, say, a videotape or an open reel audio tape. It will be around for a long time if kept in correct conditions. It suffers from several different things called, one main thing is called vinegar syndrome, which I'll talk about how an easy way to monitor that in a little bit, and color fading. Even films from 15, 20 years ago, if made on a certain type of film stock, will fade. The dyes will fade out, and films will tend to look pink or purplish in nature. So film is something that needs its own special, really needs its own special world to kind of to deal with, and we'll talk a little bit more about preservation issues with film. So one of the many factors that affect the life expectancy of audiovisual assets, of course, as we've mentioned, are environmental conditions. Temperature and relative humidity are extremely important, much as they are with wide varieties of other collections materials. Environmental conditions, temperature and relative humidity are huge, and we're pretty well set in our standards of what we know about some of this. The storage conditions of which they're kept, clean, dusty, dry and damp, constant or varying, all have effects on this, and even varying those temperatures widely, or those relative humidity, can have especially a lot with film, can have pretty dire consequences. Film expands and it can shrink and it can get brittle or supple, and all of these can affect how you're eventually going to play it back and how you're going to either transfer it or use it in the future. The previous use of an object. If a videotape has been played one time, you're probably much more likely to be able to transfer it in the future than if it's a tape that had been played hundreds of times. Every time a tape is played, it gets a little more use and a little more wear on the tape heads, and a little more, the tape gets stretched, and all things that you will be able to see when you see it visually. And then, of course, as I kind of mentioned a little bit, manufacturers' whims. All of this stuff was made by companies that were trying to make money, and so even within the same format, the same brand, this Scotch recording tape, they made hundreds of different varieties of Scotch recording tape. Some just so happens that the ones from 1974 to 1977 are really well made. Then after 77, they changed the formulation and they used something to make them cheaper. Those ones break all the time. Those ones get vinegars or get sticky shed very easily, and they get moldy. So we're looking at, and of course these companies didn't let you know. They didn't tell everybody, oh, these ones are really badly made now. And the data on that is, we don't, it's hard to know these things. So you're dealing with, and they didn't, especially film. Kodak kept their formulations for how they made their film proprietary, of course, for 100 years before they even let anybody know about some of this stuff. Storage conditions, as I mentioned, cool and low humidity are key. Film really needs to be kept much lower than videotapes. If you can get film down into, close to freezing, it's optimal, but in the 50s is okay as well. And then, of course, a mid-range relative humidity for all this stuff. Tape will be better in a little bit higher temperature, but of course, again, cool and low humidity is the rule. Again, if you can't hit these marks, if you can keep things stable at the same temperature and relative humidity and not varying, then you're better off. If it's at room temperature and that's the best you can do, but it stays within a certain really small range, then you're not doing further damage because of storage conditions. So like I said, where is it located and what's its condition? Present climate and storage is a big factor. And then how items are currently stored and what types of housing individual items are stored in. I'm going to show you kind of a few examples here about that. Sorry, got a lot of stuff everywhere. For film, you're looking at things like metal cans. These are not optimal for keeping things in their future condition. They're on reels like this, and those are not kind of your optimal way to store things. Very easily, you can buy vented. We call them vented because they will keep airflow going through. You want to have a little bit of airflow in a film can, but they're made out of inert polypropylene, and they are very, very good for keeping film. These are little things that you can do to keep film from degrading further. As you saw that last one, and this one's another good example. They often will look like this, where they're on a reel. They're kind of uncomfortable. You can see this one's kind of, all you have to do is shake it, starts coming off of the reel. And you can buy, these are called cores, and it's a very simple thing that can be done, in-house. If you buy a couple easy pieces of equipment, is to, recore a film, put it nicely wound, and then put it in your film can like this, and it really, just that alone will prolong the life significantly. With tape, with those cassette tapes, you can, buy preservation quality. These are like 75 cents a piece. They're new housings for cassette tapes, inert polypropylene flexible cases. And again, all of this stuff is just to protect it, keep it from degrading any further. You're just trying to kind of buy some time, if you will. And we know that cassette tape's going to die at some point, but if we can keep it and prolong it for now, we bought ourselves some time to do other things. And then of course you can buy even VHS. You can buy these very easily, and just these alone keep out dust, keep out any types of insects. They're great. So easy assessments you can do that you don't need a whole lot of fancy equipment to assess your storage conditions, and if you walk around your collection repositories and your vaults, and you feel yourself, you start sweating, or you feel cold, or you walk in one day and you're sweating and the next day you're freezing, you can obviously tell that temperatures are rising and falling. If you check the vaults where you have media. If you see dirt on shelves, if you see dusty cases, if you see broken cases or boxes with holes in them, obviously those are not helping the matter any, and they're only going to be doing more damage, as well as, of course, our evidence of insects, evidence of fungus, leaks. Just your basic environmental monitoring really goes a long way. If you see a leak in the ceiling, it's probably indicative that there's something going on, and in terms of media, it can't be a good thing. Any of these things, and you don't have to check them every day, just once in a, periodically. These are some photos of a vault I have been to and been in and worked with, and you can see these were things that just went unchecked for a long time because of the daily grind. Everybody's busy, everybody's got things to do, but you move a few boxes and you find mold and fungus all over the wall. You've got building infrastructure problems that I'm not even going to mention, but it probably be obvious that these two pipes here are not the types of material that travels through those pipes are not what you want in your collections. So, be aware of the infrastructure in which the building that you work in and where you have your collections held is, what's there, so that you know how to deal with it, and how to prevent disaster, if you will. So assessing the present condition of individual objects can be very difficult. Like I've mentioned, the physical condition is there's only a few things that you can tell about these films, and there's certain ways that you can monitor them. But assessing the physical condition is really can be difficult, because one film is different than another, one tape is different than another. And in fact, something like this is a film in which, unless the can is completely, like, I am pulling on it really hard right now and I cannot get it open. So how do unless I pull out my, wrench or something to crack this open, there's no way to assess its condition. So, and so some of the ways of assessing condition of audio and video materials are destructive by nature. Again, the ability to transfer and play a particular format. If you have all sorts of oddball videos and you don't have that video player, you have to really go that next step, finding somebody who has it. And then even if you do have, and even if you can play it, how do you assess the playback quality? Do you have somebody sit there all day and watch tapes and tell you Can you hear me? Okay, I'm back. Okay. Oh, great. Great. Great.
Oh, Chicago just lost.
Yes. Very common these days. So like I said, do the best with what you have, and you know, keep things at the bare bones. Try to keep them clean and in good environmental conditions. Access is a big issue with all collections, but with media, interestingly, it's difficult to tell a lot of times because you don't know what you have. Boxes and boxes, boxes and boxes of films that don't have any labels on them. So start to look at your collections and rank them. One thing we're trying to do around here is starting to rank them by just asking a simple question. If somebody came to you tomorrow and said, I need that tape, I need that film, I need that right now, it's an emergency. How easy would it be for you to retrieve it, either retrieve the film itself or retrieve the content from the film? Very easy, meaning I know exactly which shelf to go to, and I know I pull it off, I put it in the player, and there you go. Or very difficult. I have no clue what you're talking about, and I don't even know that we have that. And of course, that gets into realms of cataloging and how much of this metadata we're collecting about objects. And that's a constant work in progress for everybody. You know, these audio tapes, they have stuff written all over them. We don't know what that even means. That doesn't mean anything to anybody anymore. So, you know, keep it, you try to collect as much information as you have, but where does that fall in this access scale? Of course, this is an easy one. That picture of me it's an easy. Everything's on a shelf, labeled with a barcode. This is a difficult one. Nobody knows what's in these boxes. Boxes have writing all over them, and there's rolls of film in this box, and nobody knows what's on them. So that would fall into very difficult. So how do we preserve this stuff? As I think I've kind of hoped to give you an idea that you need to be very flexible, and you need to have a kind of a many-faceted approach for both a short-term and long-term preservation of these objects. Within the short term, you can conduct collection surveys, know what you have. I have 500 VHS tapes. Some of them I know what's on them, and I can do very basic preservation assessments by doing visual inspection, looking at them and saying, this one is dirty. This one is, I mean, if they look like this picture down here, obviously, you know they're dirty and in bad shape. But just trying to get a basic idea of what you have is the first. You know, keeping those storage and maintaining those physical collections as best as possible, and developing standard policies and procedures in regards to that, and having your staff know, you know, what to do when they come across things that are in bad shape, or who to contact if somebody if you see a huge leak in the ceiling. The next two really get into advocacy, outreach, and trying to develop the resources for this stuff. There's a big, you know, media is becoming popular now. Things like YouTube and, of course, our internet world has made things very put media on the forefront, and it can be used as a great tool to do, get donations, get with your constituency, or get with your future donors by showing that if you have gems in your collection and you can get them out there, and show that this is what we have, and these are the types of things that if we had better funding for taking care of our media collections, we have this history, and it's recorded on all these tapes and on all these films. It can be a great tool for developing preservation programs. And then, like I've mentioned, but a little bit more back onto rehousing of audio-video, things that you can do right now and in the short term. With film, I haven't mentioned yet, but in this film can, we have something it's become standard. One of the few standards in the industry are things called AD strips, and you put they're very cheap. You can get tons of them, and you put them in your film cans, and within a day or two, they will change color and give you an idea of where on the range of how much acetic acid has been given off as the film is decaying. This one film I have, if you can see, it's green, and the closer it moves to yellow, the more it means it's decaying, and the closer it moves towards the yellow, which they give you this nice handy pencil to measure with, tells you that it's going into once it gets over a certain color stage, that means it's actively degrading very quickly. So these are things that help with assessing your collection. Also, what we call molecular sieves. These can be bought just about any chemical supply company or anywhere. I think maybe even archival companies will carry these. And these go right inside of the film can. They absorb a lot of that acetic acid, and they are a very good way to keep that climate inside of a film can contained, because once these films start off-gassing this acetic acid, it can spread to other collection materials. So those are things that you would want to, if you can find the budget to, and you have film collections, keep that in mind. And of course, as I've harkened on, banged into the ground many times, monitor the environment. You don't need fancy equipment to monitor the environment. Just keep an eye on what's going on in your collection storage. So in the long term, looking out 5 to 20 years from now, digitizing is inevitable. We are in the digital domain. You're going to have to digitize collections. How we do that is still very much still very much being debated, and there's many different ways to go about it. But we always want to make sure that we maintain our physical materials as best as possible, because while the digital domain you're not going to be able to digitize everything at one time, and you want to make sure that your physical collections are staying in the best shape as possible. And then part 2, of course, of digitization is a long-term model for sustaining that digital preservation, that stewardship. And like I said, digital formats are already becoming obsolete from 5 to 10 years ago. So 5 to 10 years from now, the digital formats we are using to capture videotapes are going to be obsolete. That stuff's going to need to be continuously migrated. So we're looking at these, where we used to have films sitting on the shelf for 100 years. This digital material is not going to be able to sit on the shelf for 100 years, or it will just become obsolete. And then the big question for most people is, do I do this stuff in-house or do I do it out-of-house? And that could be a whole separate thing on its own. We do a combination of both, and I think You can maintain very good relationships with vendors, but you really have to learn about this stuff, and you have to know what you're talking about in order to save money and not really, waste so much resources, because this stuff is expensive. And how much time does it take to digitize stuff? An example from Indiana University, they found their School of Music to have 195,000 audiovisual items. If they took their current staffing and workflow and budget, they calculated that it would take 128 years to digitize every piece. So again, that just provides the point that you're going to need to prioritize your collections. And not it's very likely that not everything is going to be able to be digitized. So you're going to really have to look at transferring the stuff that you've identified as severely degraded or severely at risk based on the scale, the format scales we looked at. If you have those 1-inch reel-to-reel tapes, go ahead and get those digitized, because those machines aren't going to be around for long. If you have stuff that's completely encrusted with mold, you might want to take care of that first. And then transfer items that you'll get the most benefit from on the front end of things, things that are, very important to your collection, to your archives, or to your institution. Obviously, if you have data on items that have been requested or topics that are very popular within your institution, and you find that you have that material in some type of AV material, those can be put up on the priority chain. So prioritizing for digitization is extremely important. This is just a quick view. I'm not going to get into the weeds on common file formats right now, but this could be a separate, obviously a separate talk at some other time. But these, for your reference, if you look at this PowerPoint, these are kind of some of the major file formats that are being used right now for digitizing. But there's many different ways to digitize stuff. So you want to make sure that before you delve into a digitization project, you want to really do some research and feel free after this to contact me if you have questions about this type. If you're starting to get into the digital domain, there are resources out there and people to help make these waters less muddy, if you will. Again, the digital challenges, technology changing all the time. Like I mentioned, these files are going to be, digitization is not a once and done thing. You're going to need to migrate it. The good news on this is the cost of storage for digital files is continuing to drop and getting easier. Even here, here, everywhere, everybody's dealing with this, what it's going to take to store digital files of audio, video, and media for the future, because they're large files. So getting into good conversations with your IT departments is a good idea now, as soon as possible, and getting them on board with this type of these concepts, because IT guys are used to dealing with, at least from my experience, they're used to doing with lots of very small files that get accessed a lot, like emails, Excel spreadsheets. But now you're coming to them with a proposition to store gigantic files that may only get accessed once in a while. So the conversation has to start to begin with the technical infrastructure to work with them, because it's going to be a close relationship in the future. And just to kind of run through this real quick, like I said, make sure you know before you undertake a digitization project, know what you have, know what you want to do with it. Having an end result, I want to put this on a website that features this topic, or I want to use it for a I've been contacted by a documentary producer who really has interest in our content. Those will guide how you undertake a digitization project. All of this with the goal of trying to make the best use of time and these valuable financial resources right now. You can certainly send boxes of unknown materials to vendors to digitize them, but if you I have a friend who's a vendor who says, yeah, I get boxes. The people don't know what's in them because they don't have any metadata on them. They don't have any information. And they're just tapes and tapes of nothing, or tapes and tapes that are all duplicates. They told me to digitize all of them, so I'm digitizing all of them. But it's very wasteful. So you really want to know what you have as best you can before you undertake a project. This is a real quick example of a really nice looking digital workflow that we did a couple years ago. Everything's nice and clean, looks very interesting, looks very straightforward. In reality, this is what it looked like when I tried to explain it to some of my staff. Very complicated. You can see that a digital workflow can be very, very intensive and very complicated. So again, we don't want to just delve into this realm without being able to know what we're getting involved in. So, in conclusion, while the landscape may look endless and vast, and these challenges may seem gigantic, a lot of them are large, but we are in a good place right now because there are people that are working on this stuff actively. The fact that many universities, University of Illinois included, have dedicated people such as myself that are focusing only on media preservation is a huge step forward for people in this field, because there's more research being done, there's more collaboration, and there is more knowledge sharing out there than there ever has been in this realm. So, and the technology side of things is starting to get more tighter and more standards. We can only hope to see more standards in the future and more best common practices as everybody moves towards this, in the same direction. So I know that is a lot, but thank you so much. Here's my contact information. If you have, specific questions or anything that feel free to hit me up anytime. I talk to people. We talk to people all the time, trying to help deal with all sorts of collection. So, like I said. Thank you so
much, Josh. Our camera here at the Illinois State Library is not cooperating right now, but I will go ahead and relay some questions that I've been watching in the chat box. If you have a few minutes to stick around. Meanwhile, if you have more questions, please type them in and we'll get to them as time allows. Josh, someone asked early on in your presentation when you were talking about things lasting forever, what's the video standard? And they put, is it 50 years?
As far as video goes, again, video really is dependent on what format it is. The real challenge. The challenges with video are that the content is embedded into that cassette. So in film, if we have a huge catastrophic disaster, at the end of the day, if you find a piece of film, you would be able to hold it up to a light and see an image. You'll never be able to do that with a videotape. You'll never be able to do that with a hard drive. Generally speaking, we can expect that most video formats will be around for the next 50 years. There will be somebody who's able, now that being said, the farther you get out to those 50 years, the less number of people are there, the less people are working on it, the less number of machines, the more expensive it becomes. But we like to look at, for video, we like to look at 20 years as being our, okay, let's have a good handle on video within the next 20 years. Then moving further out from there, we're going to would be looking into the really specialty types of stuff. But video definitely will not last forever, but we still have time. It's not like, it's going to disappear. So.
Okay, great. Switching gears probably quite a bit from your point of view. Someone asked about old player piano rolls.
That's a good one. Actually, contact me in a few months because we just found here at the University of Illinois a huge, like thousands and thousands stash of piano rolls. And to be honest, that's a new one for me. So again, you're dealing with something where if you make sure that, use your best paper kind of, whatever techniques you're using to preserve and conserve paper-based documents for those piano rolls, so that when we figure out, exactly how those are going to be moved into a digital domain, you'll have them in better shape. So the answer I have is that I don't really know, but we're definitely going to be working on that, so keep in touch.
All right, maybe we'll get you a webinar down the road once you get that project started. I'm wondering how you stumble on thousands of player piano rolls, but we can talk about that later. There are two questions that might be related. One was how to store stereoscope slides, and another on large glass slide storage.
Glass plate, I'll kind of lump them into glass plate storage, really is a matter of, for the most part, it gets you closer into the realm of handling and proper enclosures. The best way to store slides and glass plates are in boxes that have dividers in them, so that each plate can be held, kept from jostling around a lot when the box is moved, and in your basic archival boxes are generally very good for those. They'll keep, again, anything that can keep the outside environment from getting in. Glass plates have a long lifespan, and they'll be around for a long time if they're kept in good storage conditions, and in good storage enclosures, and they're not handled a lot because they're very, very, obviously we know they're very easily breakable, and so slides are as well. So that's
for those of you interested in the answers to those questions too, I'd also direct you to our website and the archives of some of our previous webinars. Jennifer Hain-Tepper, a colleague of Josh's, gave 2 presentations on photo preservation, and she touched on the different formats and went into that. So check those archives. They're served on our ICPN website. I'm going to quote this question because in my world of museums, this doesn't make a lot of sense, but I know that you'll know the answer to this, Josh. Is the Library of Congress still maintaining their preferred file formats for digital repositories?
Yes, as far as I know, that is continuing, and they are also, but that goes with the caveat that is, while those are their preferred file formats, they are still they are always going to be they are in and will be in a constant state of change as they revisit them. I would point you to, and I can send this website out, and some of you may be familiar with it, but a former University of Illinois guy works at the Library of Congress, is involved in what's called the digital sustainability. It's a digital sustainability studies for file formats, which will kind of gives an idea of what are the most. They're working on what the most common file formats are, what they are using to migrate these files to new files, and exactly, kind of what the long-term outlook for these file formats is. It's called the Digital Sustainability Initiative, I believe. So I would certainly, look into that as well.
Okay. Can you take a quick look at the text box? Someone just texted in a link. Is that the link you were referring to? If you scroll all the way down.
It looks like, yeah, digital preservation formats. Yeah, that I believe so.
Okay. Thank you, Julie, for that. A couple more questions. This one might be related to that one. What software do you recommend for cataloging, searching, and retrieving digital photo files from a huge archive?
Well, that is, let's see, what, can you read that again? Sorry,
Sure.
Brian. Well, since that's a tough one because there are so many different ways to do this, and there's so many different ways to capture and store metadata and store the files. One of the things we're really grappling with right now and let me start back, is that we are looking at all these things too. So exactly what you're talking about is one very hot topic of how to organize these materials in the digital domain. I think that while I can't exactly point you towards a direct piece of software, there are many tools out there that would fall under what you would call media asset management or digital asset management systems. For example, we used in a previous life we used a product called Video Bank. A lot of people are using a open source, more closer to an open source-ish type of service called Kaltura, which is based more for media, but you could do photos in it. And these are all types of digital asset management systems where you're trying to keep your cataloging, your photographic images all kind of in the same package. Again, something we're working on here right now because this is all new to us too. So at least that part of it, definitely. And in fact, I'm working with some people in cataloging right now on developing more specific metadata standards for audiovisual and photographic material. So more to come on that, I guess, too.
Thank you. It looks like I have one more question, and it is, are vendors becoming more available to produce load-ready files as they digitize film to DVD?
I'm not exactly I'm not exactly sure what you mean by load-ready files. I'm guessing files that are more easily put into a.
She typed in a follow-up. Files in MP4.
Yes, I mean definitely there are there are more vendors out there probably now more so than ever, and I can certainly, if you contact me, I can give you a few that we've been using and that I consider to be very trustworthy in that department, and the world of film to digital, specifically film, is also an ever evolving process, and one that is very that is changing a lot. And the technology for imaging the negatives from film and creating higher end digital moving images from film is developing a lot. It falls again into a realm of how high do you want to go, because you can spend a lot of money getting having each frame of a film negative individually scanned and stitched together at high resolutions. But more vendors are taking this on right now and are producing the types of files that their clients want. So the short answer is yes, to that. And I hope that answers.
Thanks, Josh. Unfortunately, we've run out of time today.
Okay.
I really appreciate your time and your knowledge on this topic. I think that one of your early slides that kept listing the different file formats and types just shows how broad.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.